Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Chris's Radio of Horror tonight, Dorkening Network. If you are tuning into this recorded interview, don't forget this is a recorded interview being broadcast live, so no call-ins. Tonight on the show, we have Marvel DC independent movie artist, world-renowned artist, known well over for the last probably 30 or 40 years. We have artist Bill Sienkiewicz on the show with us. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Bill. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Real pleasure, Chris. Thanks.
I had no idea that you worked outside of the comic book industry until I got a little Criterion film called Cat People, and I was like, hey!
Oh, yeah.
I know who this is.
Yeah, it's it's sort of a nice little perk to be able to do stuff outside of the arena of comics. And I find that a lot of the other work that I've done partly has been because it's all interconnected. So many of the people who've given me other jobs to take on or other assignments are a lot of them turn out to be comic book readers and comic book fans. So it kind of opens the door to new arenas. But yeah, no, I've done stuff for album covers, sports for like Nike stuff, TV, film, you name it. I mean, Olympics. I've jumped around from genre to genre to dipping my toe into many little ponds.
What was what got started first? Was it comic book work or was it outside media work?
No, comics was always what I wanted to do. When I was 7, I remember reading the newspaper strips with my grandfather, because he was his English wasn't all that great. He had come over from Poland, but so I remember one of the things that we would do was we would read the Sunday news, the Sunday funnies, and and I fell in love with comic strips that way, and and it was a great way to bond with my grandfather, and then I fell in love with comic books, and I just loved the idea of this medium that, especially with the strips in the newspapers, you could have something like Peanuts or some silly very cartoony strip next to Terry and the Pirates or something something very serious and dramatic, or Prince Valiant, and so I just thought, wow, this medium can do anything, and I always loved drawing, and so when I told my father when I was 7, this is what I'm going to do. So that's always been my first love. But when I went to art school and got into studying, I realized that I just loved art in general, and there were a lot of things I wanted to try in terms of painting and fine art. But I wanted comics to be able to do all of those things. So it was sort of like wedding or force fusing or melding or cramming comics with all the other interests that I had, because I sort of felt that the medium could handle anything, so it was comics remain, as much as I've done other stuff, comics remain my first real love.
The one thing I probably really gravitated towards what you did before I really begin to understand your comic work and understand, oh, I have seen this before, oh, I've seen all these comics, was when you were doing Vampire the Masquerade.
Okay, right.
And now here's a great question. Did you ever actually try and play that? Did you or have you ever been immersed into that world? Did anyone ever go, hey, come out for a LARP and play a character?
I learned early on. I mean, I was I played some games. I grew up in the country, so card games for us were like poker and and stuff like that. But I never really got into a lot of the like the LARPing or any of the like even though I love doing the work with the like Wizards and other companies, and found all that fascinating. I for some reason, I think I felt that the learning curve for me to come into it was just too steep. And I also found out that I'd gotten a PlayStation, and when I realized that I wasn't getting any work done, it's because it was an addiction. So I literally had to, like give away my my video game console. So I just sort of found that I'm probably too much at risk for kind of going down that rabbit hole. I mean, I have some dear friends who do that. A couple of friends like Satine Phoenix. She's a well-known game player, and like I think she does like the dungeon master type of thing, and there's a real passion and a real devoted following for all of those kinds of games. So it's just something that I either missed or in part, but also chose to sort of keep my distance from, just simply because I figured I might go too deep and never get anything else done.
I completely understand that. Video games, movies, all that stuff can be super addictive. And it takes away from your creative process, but sometimes it can really fuel your creative process. Like I was watching, I don't know if you're familiar with it, the Image United documentary.
No, I haven't seen it. Is Image, you're talking about the comic company, or is that or a different Image?
Yep, the comic book company, the story of how the comic book company was founded. And there was another documentary I was watching called Comic Book Superhero Secrets Unveiled or something like that, hosted by Robert Kirkman. And watching those things has really fueled me to inspire me. And every time I rewatch parts of it or whatever, to get my butt in gear about my own documentary, which is about deceased comic book artists and writers that I'm working on.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's I applaud that, because I just sort of interrupt for 1 second.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Just hold that thought. I have that conversation with so many of my my fellow pros whenever we lose one of our own. That especially if they're elderly and have all of like the wisdom and stories, and it's the idea of actually getting a lot of that stuff down on video or on tape or on digital media. But there's so many talented people who are just, unknown to a vast, majority of fans. And it's really a kind of a crime. So I applaud that, what you're doing.
Thank you. It's been delayed because of my own graphic novel getting out there. And I've been putting a lot of effort and time into that, because it's my first big kind of like break in publishing. With what we did, and I said, you know what, I'm getting more and more information. I gotta get this first episode written, because the first episode is actually gonna be about Mark Gruenwald, and his widow Catherine has been a great help and information for it, and even agreed to be the narrator for her husband's episode.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Mark was a great guy. I mean, I didn't do too much work with him. I did some stuff with him at the offices, because of his line of books. But he and I really we spend our San Diego's together. Carl Potts, and I would go out and rent jet skis and just tear up the San Diego waterways. It was just a blast. He was such a great guy, and it was such a loss.
That's so funny, because that is the kind of silly little plot line on Loki, the TV series, because his character Mobius, the character Mobius is based on him, right. And he always wants to ride a jet ski. And it took me a little while to go, wait a minute, I've heard that before. I had to go back and listen to my recording with Catherine, because we recorded her whole conversation when she was talking about Mark, and sure enough, boom, it comes up about him being a jet ski fan. I was just like, somebody on the show was paying attention.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it was like we were like the three amigos with Carl Potts, myself, and I think there's a couple. I think I have some photos, and I think Carl's posted one online of me, back when I had my when I was blonde. After I got through a divorce, I decided, I'm just gonna change my appearance. So I just like grew out my hair, would like travel to the Caribbean, like my hair got blonde, and then so there's me, Carl, and Mark, just ripping down the this canal, which was it's making me nostalgic. But and he was good.
You gotta send me that photo, because we will we'll have to use that in his documentary episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're doing this like a TV show too, so it's definitely gonna be like we're not gonna stick it on like just YouTube or something like that. I want this to become like a big project and go to something on some kind of streaming thing. And joining us now is actually Drew, who's gonna be supposed to be helping with it, and Drew's here to do the interview with you, Bill.
Hey,
hello. Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. I'm so sorry I'm late. I'm just getting back from a bachelor party, and I was like, okay, I'm here on time, and then my computer does everything slow. It's like trying to get somewhere and hitting every red light you can think of.
Oh,
just
sure.
like,
now this is just to be clear, this is not a bachelor party from last night. They just sort of rolling, because I the only reason I ask is that I've been to a few, and it really the ones that I remember were not what I'm assuming. Let's just say they involved at that time, I think that involved drinking and driving. That's how far back some of my
no.
Yeah,
no, but
I don't recommend that, by the way. I don't.
No, I know. I wouldn't. No, this is like a bachelor party weekend, and I was just driving back from Connecticut, and at one point a cop was behind me. I was like, I have a 6-pack of mead in my front seat that is unopened, but suddenly I'm just going to watch the speed limit. My seatbelt is made sure on, and he's gone. Good. Okay. I was like, I gotta get to the interview.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Connecticut. Having lived there, it's like, especially when you're, in the Fairfield County area and like along the 95 corridor, state. That's like primo area. Yeah. And God forbid you take Route 1. You take, the main, drag in like going through Greenwich and Darien and Westport and stuff, and the likelihood of you having to talk to an officer is increases. So,
but
Bill, anyway,
I'm here, and I walk in and I'm hearing the jet ski story, and I'm like, you're referencing the Three Amigos and things. I was like, boy, I walked in at the right time, and I love it.
Bill,
I'll have to get you that photo.
Yes,
Please
definitely. Yes, absolutely, because we will definitely be using it.
Bill,
when you start something as like incredibly, is there anything you ever had to just like do? I'm trying to find the best way to put this question. Do you have like an entire file cabinet over all the years you've done stuff that you've hated, you don't want to see the light of day, and then you come back and you redraw or you finally fix, and it's been something that's been sitting around forever, kind of like an old manuscript, for writers, but for you it'd be art that you messed up on. You were like, this thing doesn't cause me nothing but trouble.
I think for me the pleasure or the enjoyment is in the doing of it, and each piece, I was talking to Sarah Frazetta, about her grandfather, and and other people who who knew him, and he would go back into pieces. Like for him, a piece was never done, so he'd rework a piece, and when I do something, I put it aside and I move on. And it's like, unless it's something, once I relinquish a piece, then it sort of becomes indicative of that particular period of time.
Right.
And it's almost like, just like going through an excavation and going, this is what was going on. If this one was a misfire, I mean, there were plenty of covers that I did that I thought were really pretty severe misfires. And I don't think I even signed. I think there was a period, if I felt like I didn't do a good job, I just wouldn't sign the cover. but I tend to let them go. And if I'm working on something and I haven't let it go yet, and it's just an on and off switch for me. Once it goes into a flat file or a box with other artwork, that's when it's officially I'm on to the next thing. But if I'm working on something and I'm having a hard time with, something isn't quite working with me and I get frustrated or angry, it's like it becomes this personal vendetta, where it's like, I'm not going to let this piece is just so close and I got to fight it through. And sometimes you can do that. Other times deadlines sort of forbid that. So you kind of have to let a lot of things go that are, good as opposed to great, and sometimes you hit them out of the park. So it's that's part of what makes it an interesting horse race, but I don't go back to pieces that way.
What do you what one thing I have been trying desperately to get more into is the creative process of the artist, but not just like a matter of like, oh, this is how I sit down and draw and stuff like that. What are some of the supplies and the paints that you use? What are the what are your tools of the trade that are your the foundation of what you do?
Well, that's it's interesting. I mean, I have so many of my friends, and even guys that I shared studio space with, when I was in Westport, the two guys I shared studio space with were Leonard Starr and Stan Drake, and they were strip guys. So they'd have their drawing board and, their ashtray because they were both smokers, and, they'd have a place for their coffee cup, but it would be like a, work area for their pen and ink. So a bottle of ink, India ink, that would be sort of taped down, and they'd have a couple of, an eraser and a couple of other tools. I use pretty much everything, so it's just like the idea of actually having that kind of simple setup. I miss that, but I tend to jump in, like if I'm working on a watercolor, or if I'm working on, a pen and ink, I also jump around from different pen and ink tools. So, my setup is pretty bizarre, and it's pretty extreme, and it's pretty eclectic. Right. I don't even really use, like, I find it difficult sometimes to sit at a drawing board, because I have so many supplies around me. It's like sometimes I'll have to reach up and get, a certain medium I'm looking for, and pour it down and use it and then set it aside again. And so I'm kind of a mad scientist when I'm working. It's gotten to the point now where currently what I'm doing is I'm actually working in my new place. I've got a big open floor, and I'm actually working on the floor, and I've kind of got everything sort of spread out around me. So it's almost like a debris field,
Gotcha.
But yeah, but I think just sort of kind of to answer the question in terms of my, I use pen and ink, acrylics, watercolor, colored pencil, polyurethane medium, acrylic mediums, oils, oil pastel. I mean, everything. I'm absolutely addicted to trying to find, the magic medium, to sort of manifest the idea that I want. And I keep thinking that somehow this will be the medium I can finally understand and control. There's always seems to be a fight.
So I have a question. So, I mean, we're seeing a day and age where a lot more Marvel properties are being adapted. I mean, this isn't like back in the 90s where you had the occasional superhero thing. Now it's everywhere. And, you've had a long career working in comics and whatnot. So how does it feel, for instance, when you're in the movie theater and you see something that you worked on, you contributed kind of on the big screen, and then you even see your name among people being thanked? Like, how does that feel? Like knowing that this once was just a kind of a niche genre that was, you know, pretty popular, but still kind of very, and now it's everywhere. Like how,
Yeah,
how does that?
well, it's you know, I think it's very unusual. I mean, I will say that. I mean, because the main thing for me was always about, you know, I just wanted to be able to do well enough to be able to do the next comic story, and the fact that I like pushing stuff, and the fact that they kept letting me kind of do the stuff at the time, like say like the New Mutants or Legion or something like that. So when for example, when I was I think a season 2 premiere, I was on. I mean, the idea of actually getting out of my studio and putting on a suit and going to a Hollywood premiere and walking the red carpet was like, if you had told the little farm kid me from New Jersey that would be like what I'd be doing, you know, someday, I would have laughed, because that's just so not, you know, where my head was at. I'm only about, you know, does the story work? You know, I love the ability to, you know, tell stories that way. But there was a reporter who asked me, how do you feel about the fact that, you know, that the Legion, you know, is this critically acclaimed, you know, fan favorite, you know, TV show? And I said, to be honest, I said, I'm still trying to process the fact that they let Chris and I do the comic book. It's like, you know, so I'm stuck. Like, my head is still trying to I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that. You know, all of this other stuff is sort of gravy, and I can't even say it's sort of like a nice vindication, you know, or anything. It's just it's lovely. It's you know, but it's you know, I say that to a lot of young people who want to get into comics. I said, look, if you're looking to make a lot of money, and if you're trying to, you know, start your fragrance line, you know, you're just don't do it. You got to do it because you love doing the stories. Right. So anything else that happens on top of that, you know, as Mike Mignola will let you know, it's like all that other stuff is kind of gravy, you know.
Yeah, I've met Mike before, and that sounds exactly like something he would say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What was somebody because of, again, after, you know, explaining a little bit about the documentary that I'm working on, who was somebody in comics that you never had a chance to work with in your very long career that you wish you had, and maybe it was somebody that you passed on and you were like, damn it, should have done that?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've been really fortunate. I still remember, you know, a couple of the ones that you know didn't get away. The ones I actually where I felt like these little epiphany moments of kind of going like, wow, I'm actually working in comics. It's like where they kind of, the reality of your life dream sort of hits you. I mean, I remember that I was thinking a Gorilla Grodd piece for Who's Who in the DC universe over Carmine Infantino, and Carmine Infantino was my first comic book, you know, creator, like on the Flash, that I loved. Kurt Swan is somebody I wish I had gotten a chance to work to ink. Kirby, certainly. But I was really fortunate to get to ink, you know, guys like Jim Aparo and the Buscema brothers, and back when I wasn't inking all of my own stuff, you know, having like Joe Rubenstein, I think Neil, I think inked one or two things, and P. Craig Russell. But there is one creator that you know, and having Joe Sinnott ink my stuff, you know, and I've actually inked some of his, you know, over the years for different, you know, for Bob Almond and for the Inkwell, you know, Inkwell. But I became really, really good friends with Nick Cardy, and lovely man, really talented, sweetheart, and just an amazing talent. I grew up on his work as well, and I remember talking to the editors up at DC and saying, look, you've got to give this guy, a series or something to do, because he's Nick Cardy, it's good God, it's like, he's just brilliant. And I don't know if things were like, if they were starting to put things into motion for it, but sadly he passed. And I really do feel like there's a huge loss of not having been able to ink him in any or do finishes with him or in any capacity, because he was such a like I said, a dear guy and an amazing talent. So because I always felt like I ended up learning so much from working on these guys who did stuff.
Right.
Gene Colan would have been another one I would have loved to have done, kind of like the all-stars of my youth.
Yeah, what's funny is I had Gene Colan on the show a few months before he passed away, because he had just done this standalone Captain America story in Captain America number 601, where Cap and Bucky fight Dracula.
Right. Yeah.
Oh wow.
That won an award, right, Chris?
Yes, it did.
So.
It did. And his widow contacted me afterwards asking for that interview, and I sent it to her, but I don't know where it is these days. Unfortunately, it was on a cloud server that doesn't exist anymore, so I might have lost the last Gene Colan interview. And of course, speaking of like horror, you're back in horror yourself. You're doing all the alternate covers for the Conjuring comic book tie-in, which is fantastic.
Oh yeah, that's so much fun. And it's like the old proverbial riding a bike. I tend to feel like horror for me. It's fun to do the monsters, but I love the suggestion of horror and the creepiness and the terror things. So it's like riding a really dank bike for me, getting back on that horse, to mix all the metaphor together.
Right.
It's just so much fun. And of course, working with the creative team there, and it's just great. I finished. They're all wrapped now, so I think it's a 5-issue series.
It is a 5-issue series. Yeah, the newest, like I said, the newest issue came out this past Wednesday, which is a cover dedicated to Tim's backup story, the origin of the monkey, the monkey with the accordion. Right.
Which was a fun cover to do.
Are you a big fan of the Conjuring series of films?
I've seen 2 of them, and I really love them. I think the main leads are terrific, and I tend to be a little suspicious of some of the horror that's being done now, because a lot of it relies on sort of like almost the predictable jump scares and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I tend to I think I like Ari Aster, I think Hereditary, and films like that, and of course I go way back. For me, Kubrick's The Shining, and I remember seeing The Exorcist when that came out. And saw all of the audience responses and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, in real time, not like where you get people now who see it and go like, I don't know why people think it's scary. It looks so stupid, like it's generational in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's really fascinating to me what horror, does. It's such a primal emotion, fear and the anxiety and exhilaration, or even when we get on roller coasters or whatever, it's that we want to be scared but safe, but safe at the same time. Mm. So, but to me, I always find that what each generation's horror sort of says more about the culture, at the time. So, you get different things, like you get like Hostel, where it becomes like more body horror, but to me, films like Audition, or The Shining or whatever, like where there's a lot more psychology involved. So The Conjuring, I think is some of the best stuff that's being done, now.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's like a standout element of horror, like what is the comedian filmmaker who's now a big horror filmmaker, Jordan Peele. He is doing, I hope, something incredibly unique with Candyman, which comes out late this month, which is based on Clive Barker. Clive Barker's horror has always been so
amazing.
Amazing, so fracked up, so artistic, so BDSM, S&M, weird sometimes.
Unique.
That it's so different.
Well, I mean, even Hellraiser, when I first saw that, it's like, again, that film really, it holds up. And I keep thinking there's a lot of stuff that's been done that I don't know if would be necessarily allowed, or how the goalposts have been moved. And I'll even look at films like by David Lynch, who is like a hero of mine, and I mean, you take the guy behind, like the creature behind the dumpster in Mulholland Drive, and tell me that's not horror. Tell me that the anxiety of that Henry deals with the I can't even, we don't even know if it is a baby, from Eraserhead. It's like, a lot of that stuff is is just so brilliant,
right? And your stuff has been, like, people look at your artwork and it's like, it's so different than anything out there, and there are plenty of people that have a style that's similar to yours, but I mean, you were doing stuff in ways that people had just never seen before, like the demonic cave bear thing from New Mutants, and so on and so forth.
Well, that was, I realized that the thing that I sort of came to realize about, in terms of trying to assess my own place or my work or something that felt identifiable to me, because I do feel like I want to be invisible more and more and just tell the story. Because, I spent so much of my youth trying to find a definitive style and jumping from influence to influence and everything else, to the point now where I kind of want to get out of the way, and just, I guess the goal was to draw well enough to make something look like what it was supposed to.
Right.
But more than that, and I've seen people who can draw rings around me and everybody. And so a lot of times the work can be very antiseptic and leave me cold, because it lacks a certain level of emotional impact. So what I realized, what really kind of did it for me, was I'd rather draw well enough to make something look like it's supposed to, but also I'm more interested in how something feels, the emotion of a scene. So, if it gets under your skin in a way that is kind of can't quite be defined, to me that's more successful than having a monster with all the scales and in place, on all the claws, just so. So that for me is sort of the thing I came to, was that it's got to feel a certain way.
But that's essentially the same thing that something comics and horror have everything similar, is that back in the day, there was a lot more room for creativity and originality. Even ones that weren't commercially successful but then became cult classics still have an audience today. I mean, we brought up Hellraiser. You could bring up John Carpenter. I mean, The Thing and all that. And those are classics. And
without a doubt.
Yeah,
well, the thing is, I think the big difference is that at the time, many of those were not thinking of franchises. They were one-offs. They were, and I think that's the big difference right now. I think anything that sort of does well, I think that they automatically, they're looking for the next Jason, or Freddy Krueger or something like that.
Right.
So, which I think can sometimes dilute, I mean, you look at the original Ring, the Ringu, and then you look at Verbinski's version, which was brilliant, and then Ring 2. It's like, with that scene with the deer, it's like it starts to lose a little bit of what made it so special. I mean, it's like I didn't see Dr. Sleep.
It was great.
Although I've heard good things about it.
So good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but for me, it's like, and I know Stephen King doesn't particularly care for what Kubrick did, but I think to me that, The Shining is like right up there for me in terms of, horror.
By the way, speaking of horror, I only found this by accident, and I think someone completely horribly mislabeled it because it's not Elektra. There's a Elvira picture drawing that you did, and it's clearly Elvira, but it's labeled as Elektra on Pinterest. Have you ever seen this?
Oh my God.
No.
Yes, I swear to God, it's got to be Elvira. She's got the giant hair and the giant, upper pectoral muscle region that I don't want to describe.
Right.
But some gosh darn idiot has it labeled under you as Elektra, and it's clearly your signature too. It's your fancy goofy scribble scrabble signature.
Right. Yes. Well,
not trying to be offensive. Your signature is like this line that has this weird little.
Well, it looks like a doctor's prescription. For
my God, your signature on everything looks like a doctor prescription. I'm so glad you get on that joke.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, even when I was a kid and I had to learn the alphabet, I mean, even when I was writing my name as a,
Bill, I completely understand. That's how I got my nickname, Dr. Chris, because my signature looks like Doctor's Chicken Scratch.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
horrible.
It's like I'm saying, look, if you don't know what my signature is, just take it to a pharmacist and they'll tell you what they'll probably give you a script for some Valium or something. But yeah, even when I would get to the SIENK, the heck with it, so I just all those letters, I just tried to get to the simplest way to just get it across. It's like to imply a lot of letters.
Oh yeah, totally. We're unfortunately on a Zoom call, so it's going to start killing us for time. Drew, did you have one last question you wanted to ask Bill before we have to let him go?
Yeah, I did have one question. Actually, it's something I've been kind of curious to ask people in the community. It's something words. So actually, Mr. Sienkiewicz, I've actually met you before at a convention or two, and you've signed things for me, and I do know, and I agree with Chris, Dr. Chris, about your signature. I was like, that's unique. Basically, how that me, I guess I'm a signer or an autographer. I'm not really sure what our terminology is anymore. But over time, we've seen a lot of increase in the community where more and more people are charging for autograph versus kind of years ago. And it's kind of a very much an ongoing topic because while some people remember that this is still a job for you, like this is your career and you have to live, you have to eat, you have to pay rent and support families or such and whatnot. Some people think are on the lines like, oh, it's kind of greedy. Like if we didn't support them, then have all this stuff. So what's your 2 cents on that?
Well, it's evolved. I mean, and it's, I guess partly because it is a kind of a commercial market. That's also a factor. I mean, I would do, sign a lot of stuff with no charge for quite a long period of time. Right. And then I found that, people were taking the signed copies and going on and selling them. And
you see nothing from that.
Yeah, so. Well, exactly. And then, there was a period when I would do 3 for free or whatever.
Right,
and then, so over the years, it's like, it's almost like it's had to evolve. Where, there are some artists that I know who charge, almost like, the film stars, like photo, for
oh
for
God,
a
yes,
picture,
it's gotten so. Oh my God. I could go on a rant about that for like an hour, and it would not be a very pleasant, nice rant. Ever.
I absolutely understand. So I think.
But in some fairness though, I do believe that the scalping has gotten fracking out of ridiculous or whatever. When you have a guy come up to you, let's say with 10 copies of The Conjuring and sign them, and then you turn around the next day, let's say you go back to your hotel room and say, geez, those look like the copies I just signed now on eBay. Oh, you know what I mean? I completely understand something like that because I was in line to meet the current guy doing Amazing Spider-Man, writer, that
Nick
guy.
Spencer.
Thank you. And I had the first 3 issues of that book for him to sign. That's it. Nothing else or whatever. And this guy's opening up a briefcase, and he's got he must have like 25 copies of Amazing Spider-Man #1 because they seem to relaunch the comic book back to #1 every 5 minutes. And I was like, are you freaking serious? I wanted to say something to him, but it's not my place. I had Nick sign my books or whatever, and then I kind of like did a gesture over to me. He looked over at me. He's like, "Yeah, I know, I see that too." But I appreciate you just having those 3 books for me. I was just like, dude, I think everything you did on Captain America was brilliant. I loved Superior Foes of Spider-Man, and where you're going in Amazing's already got me a fan as a fan of yours so much. He's like, I appreciate, man. I appreciate letting me know about the scalper. And Kevin Smith even like blew up at a guy one time on a live video because this guy was like getting his autograph on all this crap or whatever, and Kevin Smith lost his mind.
Yeah, it's understandable that that it can happen. I mean, there's a certain kind of in my whole MO at conventions is I kind of feel like I'm an ambassador for the medium. So and also for younger fans and kids. I mean, so the idea of signing a comic to a young fan and personalizing it, or even sometimes doing a remark, is if it helps create another fan, a reader, that's cool. But you can certainly tell when someone is out to you just develop this sixth sense. It's kind of, you can sniff them out, And so over the years, I've had to sort of adapt a little bit. And but the main thing is that for me, even if I'm charging, for there's the CGC grading and all this other stuff, and everything has its I guess everything becomes a weird commodity, now
there's like CGC grading on trading cards and VHS tapes and DVDs, and I'm like, really? DVDs? Okay.
So the amount of time, that to sign this stuff is one thing, and so I try to keep the amount reasonable. At the same time, it's like if I'm doing remarks or whatever, it's like, because I don't for a second take for granted that that my livelihood is really dependent on the fan appreciation and the fact that if they follow my work and like what I do, that's one thing I kind of have an issue with like seeing a lot of misfires out there right now, where, maybe right now culturally it's like we're kind of in a dangerous spot where you can lose people, by not appreciating the people, the fans, I mean, I certainly have seen enough stuff on Star Wars, etc., and other arenas to sort of, make me kind of just go, okay, let's just dial it back a little bit,
Definitely.
But again, it's the idea of because I remember reading comics and buying them when they were like 12 cents. The idea of getting stuff signed. I mean, I remember I remember years ago I was in Manhattan. I just come from Marvel, and I was on Madison Avenue, like downtown, like 35th Street, and there was a limousine, and there was a small crowd of people. And there was a limousine, and I looked over, and it was Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell. And I had my portfolio, and I went like, you know what, I got to do it. And I actually crossed the street. I walked up to Muhammad Ali, and I said, "Can I have your autograph?" And Cosell was just like in his tux, who was trying to get him into the car. And I handed him a piece of paper, and Ali signed it. And I ended up giving that to my brother, because my brother was a big sports guy. And then it was just like, they got in the car. I think a couple of other people did it as well. But I don't know what prompted me to I just didn't feel any fears. Like I'm just going to do it. But the idea of doing something like that now would be impossible. It was just sort of like, so things have really sort of escalated and changed and everything is sort of viewed from the prism of a business.
Sorry to interrupt. Just to let you know, we're at the 3-minute mark before Zoom kicks us off.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, well, I mean, so yeah, but I don't know if I've answered your question in terms of that, but I totally understand. Well, I guess my point was actually going to make was that the idea of if you're a fan and you do it because you love the creator and you want to get something signed, it's like it's like, at what point does you wanted to get some kind of personal acknowledgement or a signature kind of cross over into some kind of like, do I have to mortgage the house for it? It's like, come on, it's like there's got to be some way to make it work. So
agreed, and thank you. Yeah, that's how I feel as well. So that's awesome. So thank you, and I agree with that idea of being an ambassador. It's the same thing with the fans. We're ambassadors of ourselves. So if we put on our best, that's fine. But if I'm just going to sit down and tell you, oh, I thought your thing was, I was like, well, no one asked you. So
right. Bill, it is a community, and it is a dialogue. As much as people, may not think so, it's a two-way street. The fans and the readers and the viewers and the creators, I think that we need to rely on each other because and do so in a less toxic way than things seem to be going in certain respects now. But that would be another whole conversation.
Oh yeah. We'll have to create a whole other Zoom call for another 45 minutes of that. Drew, thank you for joining me for this. Bill, if you could please repost about this. This will be actually airing tonight. So this will air tonight. There's a link up on my show's Facebook page, Radio of Horror. I could send a link to Susan, and if you could please post this.
Yeah, she'll be able to. She'll probably can do the post and let me know as well.
If you could post this up on your Facebook page as well for everyone to see that it's airing tonight, that'd be great. And then when we have the actual interview up on my YouTube channel and online, I will send that over for everyone to listen to if they can't tune into the broadcast tonight.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bill, for this. I really appreciate it. And please send me that. Please send me that photo as soon as you can.
Yes.
Okay, I'll hunt it down and get it to you.
All right.
All right, gentlemen. Have a great one.
Thank you so much.
Sir. Have a good one. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.